There will come a time when black people wake up and become intellectually independent enough to think for themselves, as other humans are intellectually independent enough to think for themselves. Then the black man will think like a black man, and he will feel for other black people. And this new thinking and feeling will cause black people to stick together. And then at that point, you'll have a situation where when you attack one black man, you are attacking all black men. And this type of black thinking will cause all black people to stick together. And this type of thinking also will bring an end to the brutality inflicted upon black people by white people. And it is the only thing that will bring an end to it. No federal court, state court, or city court will bring an end to it. It's something that the black man has to bring an end to himself.
The quest for racial equality in America has always been characterized by bloodshed and structural injustice. From the transatlantic slave trade to the current day, African Americans have encountered numerous obstacles to full freedom and equality. What would happen if black Americans united forces and demanded change on their terms? This is the central question of our debate today, as we delve into Malcolm X's compelling beliefs. Malcolm X encourages us to confront the ugly facts of racism in America and envision a better future in which black Americans can think, feel, and act for themselves without fear of violence or retaliation. He argues that true liberation will only come when black Americans can break free from the shackles of internalized oppression and forge their path, driven by their interests and aspirations. Malcolm X stated that Muslims who follow the Honorable Elijah Muhammad have never bombed churches or murdered children, and have not been guilty of initiating aggressive acts of violence. He said that the accusation of violence against Muslims stems from a guilt complex that exists in the minds of many white people, who are aware of the brutal treatment of Negroes by whites throughout history.
The charge of violence against us actually stems from the guilt complex that exists in the conscious and subconscious minds of most white people in this country. They know that they've been violent in their brutality against Negroes, and they feel that someday the Negro is going to wake up and try and do unto them as they have do unto the whites as the whites have done unto us. We aren't a violent group. We are taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to obey the law, to respect everyone who respects us. We're taught to display courtesy, to be polite. But we're also taught that at any time anyone in any way inflicts or seeks to inflict violence upon us, we are within our religious rights to retaliate in self-defense to the maximum degree of our ability. We never initiate any violence upon anyone, but if anyone attacks us, we reserve the right to defend ourselves. So to accuse us of being violent is like accusing a man who is being lynched, who is being hung on a tree, simply because he struggles vigorously against his lyncher. The victim is accused of violence, but the lyncher is never accused of violence. And I only point this out because the various racist groups that are set up in this country by whites and who have actually practiced violence against blacks for 400 years are never associated or identified or made synonymous with the term violence. But whites speak of Muslims almost synonymously with violence. Whenever Muslims are mentioned by them, violence is brought up, but it's not connected with any other group. This is a sort of a propaganda tactic, or what I would call psychological warfare, to in some way make the image of the Muslims in this country be a violent image rather than a religious image. You should be happy that Muslims who follow the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, number one, don't believe in any form of integration. and and believe that every mention of the word integration by whites, whether it be from the mouth of Kennedy on down to the mouth of the lowest, raggediest white liberal in the street who is beatnik-like involving himself in these integration efforts, if we believed in it, we would integrate, and we would fight anybody who got in our way or made any effort whatsoever to stop us from integrating. If we really believed that the law of the land, the Supreme Court, and other so-called judicial bodies were for real when they talked about integration, we would integrate. And knowing that the law was on our side, and any effort we made to demonstrate toward integration, why, we would know the law should be on our side, if it's the law of the land. If it is the law of the land, then the demonstrators are within the law, and the discriminators are against the law. But to show you the hypocrisy of the law, when Negroes demonstrate for integration, instead of arresting the discriminators, the law arrests the demonstrators. So this is a foolish move on the part of Negroes. And when you foolishly get yourself involved with an enemy, then whatever comes upon you, that's your business. As Muslims, we believe that separation is the best way and the only sensible way, not integration. And but on the other hand, when we see our people being brutalized by white bigots, white racists, we think that they are foolish to allow themselves to be beaten and brutalized and do nothing whatsoever to protect themselves. They are foolish. They should have the right to defend themselves against any attack made against them by anyone. If a dog is biting a black man, the black man should kill the dog. Whether the dog is a police dog, a hound dog, or any kind of dog. If a dog is sick on a black man, when that black man is doing nothing but trying to take advantage of what the government says is supposed to be his, then that black man should kill that dog, or any two-legged dog who sicks the dog on it.
Should other black men help that particular person who was attacked?
I think you'll find, sir, that there will come a time when black people wake up and become intellectually independent enough to think for themselves, as other humans are intellectually independent enough to think for themselves. Then the black man will think like a black man, and he will feel for other black people. And this new thinking and feeling will cause black people to stick together. And then at that point, you'll have a situation where when you attack one black man, you are attacking all black men. And this type of black thinking will cause all black people to stick together. And this type of thinking also will bring an end to the brutality inflicted upon black people by white people. And it is the only thing that will bring an end to it. No federal court, state court, or city court will bring an end to it. It's something that the black man has to bring an end to himself.
Malcolm X emphasized that Muslims are taught to obey the law, respect everyone who respects them, and display courtesy and politeness. However, they also reserve the right to defend themselves to the maximum degree possible if anyone inflicts violence upon them. He noted that the image of Muslims is often tarnished by propaganda and psychological warfare, which aims to portray them as violent individuals. Malcolm X argued that this portrayal is inaccurate and misleading. Malcolm X expressed his belief that separation, rather than integration, is the best way forward for Negroes. He stated that Muslims do not believe in integration and will not fight for it, as they do not think it is a viable solution. He criticized Negroes who demonstrate integration, saying that they are foolish to allow themselves to be brutalized by white bigots without defending themselves. Malcolm X advocated for the right to self-defense, saying that Negroes should defend themselves against any attack. Malcolm X predicted that a time would come when black people would wake up and become intellectually independent, thinking for themselves and feeling for other black people. He said that this newfound thinking and feeling will cause black people to stick together and defend one another.
What is your opinion and attitude toward the civil rights movement in general, and particularly the Reverend Martin Luther King and his philosophy of nonviolent direct action?
If the white people really passed meaningful laws, it would not be necessary to pass any more laws. There are already enough laws on the law books to protect an American citizen. You only need additional laws when you're dealing with someone who is not regarded as an American citizen. But whites are so hypocritical. They don't want to admit that this black man is not a citizen. So they classify him as a second-class citizen to get around making him a real citizen. If he was a real citizen, you'd need no more laws. You'd need no civil rights legislation. Civil rights, when you have civil rights, you have citizenship. It's automatic. White people don't need laws to protect their citizenship because they're citizens. But they don't want to tell us we're not citizens. And at the same time, they don't want to pass laws that are meaningful enough to protect us as if we were citizens. And the Supreme Court desegregation decision is the best example I know. That's a law from the Supreme Court. 10 years have gone by. No desegregated schools. It hasn't been implemented beyond, I think, 9% in 10 years. So this just shows you the hypocrisy of the American white man. They talk out of both sides of their mouth. And for this reason, we who are Muslims, that is, who believe in the religion of Islam, who believe in God, we don't believe that black people will ever get any laws, get any problem with laws being passed or new persons being put in office, white liberals being put in office. There is nothing that the white man will ever do to bring about true, sincere citizenship or civil rights recognition for black people in this country. Nothing will they ever do. They will always talk it, but they won't practice it. And with the Supreme Court, if the NAACP can tell me that they want a desegregation decision for me 10 years ago, but yet the schools haven't been desegregated, as I say, this is a victory with no victory. It's a victory that you can talk about, but it's a victory you can't show me. So if you represent the NAACP and you are telling me about this great victory you won for me, when I look at you, I have to conclude that either you have been duped yourself or else you are trying to dupe me. And in most instances where the civil rights struggle is involved, there is no civil rights leader can point to me one concrete gain, practical gain that black people have made in the civil rights field in this country, not only during the past 10 years, but during the past 100 years.
Now, the other part was with respect to Mr. King and the nonviolent direct action.
Well, I will let Jimmy Baldwin and John Killens and Lou Lomax, the writers, answer that. Speaking right after this church was bombed in Birmingham, Christian church was bombed in Birmingham by Christians too, mind you. And these 4 little girls were murdered. John Killens and James Baldwin and Lomax and the Negro writers and actors had a meeting at the town hall in New York. And Killen pointed out, concerning these murders of these little girls, said the killings had raised doubts about the intelligence of the nonviolence in the civil rights struggle. He went on to declare that he could no longer be asked to love those who persecuted and killed Negroes. He also, and the writer, Mr. Handler, who's describing this, said, it was not clear concerning Killen's remarks to his audience that he was breaking with it was clear rather to his audience that he was breaking with the doctrine of the Reverend Martin Luther King's philosophy that as Christians, Negroes should love their fellow man in a truly religious sense. Now, James Baldwin, speaking on that same platform, said, and I was present during this entire affair, asserted that the American people shared a collective guilt for the persecution of Negroes, much as Germans did because of their silence during the Nazi persecution. He denounced President Kennedy for what he termed Kennedy's lack of passion in the civil rights struggle. Mr. Baldwin said that there could no longer be a Republican Party for the Negro people as long as it listed a Barry Goldwater, nor a Democratic Party for the Negro people with a Senator Eastland on its roster. He asserted that the federal government acted swiftly and energetically, that unless the federal government acted swiftly and energetically, future slaughter would make Birmingham look like a dress rehearsal. What do I think about King's attitude? King's right-hand man, Wyatt Walker, at King's convention, according to the New York Times on September the 26th, said, quote, "We have been duped," meaning these persons involved in the civil rights struggle, of which King is the symbolic leader. His right-hand man says, and I quote, "We have been duped, or have duped ourselves, into believing that the chains have been broken, when in truth we have only been chained more securely. Half freedom has in many instances been worse than no freedom at all." Why, don't ask me what I think about their struggle. I can tell you what they think about their struggle. And they are pointing out that it is becoming more difficult every day for the civil rights leaders to keep the masses of black people nonviolent and long-suffering and patient, and keep them from becoming disenchanted.
Malcolm X expressed his skepticism regarding the effectiveness of laws enacted to provide equal opportunities and rights for Negroes. He argued that if whites genuinely intended to pass meaningful laws, there would be no need for additional legislation, as existing laws would suffice to protect American citizens. However, Malcolm X contended that whites were hypocritical, refusing to acknowledge that Negroes were not treated as full citizens, instead classifying them as second-class citizens. Malcolm X emphasized that the Supreme Court's desegregation decision, despite being passed over 10 years ago, had not been implemented, with only a minimal percentage of schools being desegregated. This, he argued, demonstrated the hypocrisy of the American white man, who talked about equality but failed to take meaningful action. He believed that the civil rights movement, which relied on nonviolent direct action, was ineffective in achieving genuine change. Regarding Martin Luther King's philosophy of nonviolence, Malcolm X was critical, arguing that this approach was ineffective in the face of violent opposition. He believed that Negroes should instead focus on self-defense and empowerment. Malcolm X pointed out that the civil rights movement had not achieved any significant gains, despite the passage of laws and the efforts of leaders like King. He also questioned the sincerity of white liberals and the federal government in addressing the civil rights issue. He believed that they were more interested in maintaining the status quo than in bringing about genuine change. Malcolm X argued that the federal government's failure to take decisive action in response to the bombing of the Christian church in Birmingham, which resulted in the murder of 4 little girls, demonstrated their lack of commitment to protecting the rights of Negroes. Malcolm X's views were shared by some other prominent figures, including James Baldwin, who criticized King's nonviolent approach and argued that Negroes should take a more militant stance in demanding their rights. Baldwin also emphasized the collective guilt of the American people for the persecution of Negroes, drawing parallels with the Nazi persecution of Jews in Germany. In addition, he pointed out that even some of King's closest associates, such as Wyatt Walker, were beginning to question the effectiveness of the civil rights movement. Walker stated that the movement had been duped into believing that progress had been made, when in reality, Negroes were still being denied their basic rights. Malcolm X argued that this growing disillusionment within the civil rights movement demonstrated the need for a new approach, one that emphasized self-defense and empowerment rather than non-violent direct action. As we wrap up, we invite you to reflect on this question. What progress have we made in addressing systemic racism in America, and what work still needs to be done? Please drop your thoughts in the comments below, share this video, and hit your thumbs on the like button. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.